Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Beautiful Rebellion podcast. This is episode 3, and today we're doing some introductions. I realized in listening back to the other episodes that have been released that you have no idea who we are. So today, Jean will be sharing a bit more about what she does, how she got here, how she decided to work on this book called Beautiful Rebellion. Also, this podcast exists to have conversations about faith, culture, and family, but it also really is to prepare for the release of her book. Her book is coming out February 2nd, 2027, and I think the pre order link is either ready now or will be ready next week. They will be in the show notes. And so, yeah, get on the list. You're not going to want to miss it. It's a fantastic book and it will change your life. So, really quick introduction about me. My name is Lyra Kim. I am a student at Fuller Theological Seminary. I'm getting my master's in theological studies or master of arts in theological studies. I recently switched from the Master of Divinity program, and I am currently studying the intersections of faith and art and how they can help to support healing and also the edification of Asian stories and Asian people, specifically Asian women. I have very reluctantly been led into school again. But it has been the joy of my life. I have really, really, really loved being back. And this opportunity to have these conversations with Jean on this podcast, I feel is very aligned with my own story and what I feel called to. And I'm also a creative. I love all things content related, music related, creation related. If you're an artist, I probably will talk your ear off. I am Korean American, third generation Korean American, and yeah, born and raised in New York. I think I've lived in every borough so far except for the Bronx and Long Island. Is that true? That is true. Yes. That's just a bit about me. I forgot to introduce myself in the actual episode. So, what you're about to hear is a bit more about Jean's background, her story, how she decided to write this book, and also what it would be like to be reparented herself. I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. Okay, happy listening. I want to also do like some introductions, just letting people know who it is that you are, because I realize we haven't done that. We've just been like getting directly to.
And people are like, who is she? Why should we care about this?
Yeah, just in case they don't know. What do you do? What's your family like? What was your hometown like growing up? Tell us about you.
Oh, yeah. I I am from Los Angeles area, Glendale, California, and grew up in pretty much the same home for 18 years. My parents are immigrants from Korea, and they had a clothing store, like a store that sold clothes in downtown LA, and then they had a fast food restaurant. So I grew up, in a pretty middle class neighborhood, pretty stable, and yeah, I never left the LA area for 30 years. And and then met my husband before those 30 years, and he had lived all around the world and thought, gosh, this girl has never left her LA bubble. And I was like, well, it's a pretty good bubble. But once I left it, it's been amazing. I'm so grateful that I got to leave. And so we lived in Houston for 8 years. And we have 3 boys who are now teenagers, 17, 15, and almost 14. Cannot believe it. And we live in New York City.
Tell us about your coaching.
Oh, yeah. What do I do? So I got my master's in marriage and family therapy, and I was working as a child therapist and loved that. But it also was really, really difficult because, given my faith in Jesus and my love for God and just the true healing power, I found that in a Department of Mental Health funded clinic, I couldn't bring in, I believe, the true source of healing. And so that was really frustrating. And um, I did that for a few years, stayed at home with my kids for a big majority of their upbringing. And so, gosh, I did homeschooling, and it was like a half homeschool model. So they were in school Monday and Wednesday, and they were home Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And I really thought I was like homeschooling. And then we ended up on a year-long road trip, and we'll get into that probably further down the line in more depth because I would love to share that story. But when we were on this road trip for a year, I thought I did have homeschooling, so I could full-time homeschool. And that was not the case because the school itself was doing so much of it, and they're amazing. So ended up, yeah, just having them read lots of books and do workbooks and such, and that was fun. Moved to New York, and that was fall of 2019. And when I was looking to get licensed, I just felt like the door kept closing, and I was like, I don't know what's happening. And then I found coaching, or coaching found me, and I fell in love with it. I just love the both and that I have my therapy background and that foundation, but just the ability to help people um, with the coaching modality. I think it really gives them the agency and the ability to know that they have all the resources within them as long as you ask good questions and you can draw out from them, and it really gives them a hope to move forward. So it's the both and of going back. We always say that kind of like therapy is the archaeology to kind of go back and understand what is holding you back, what are the wounds, what is your trauma, all of that stuff. But we want to move you forward, and that is the coaching. It's like the architecture. How do you want to continue to build the life that you want and live into the freedom that you have been given now that you've dealt with a lot of the wounds from your past?
Thank you so much for your introduction. I think now people know who you are. Actually, while we're here talking about your work, why don't you tell us about a little bit, tell us a little bit about why you decided to write a book. Tell us about that journey that you went on.
When I was younger and a troubled, moody youth, I think I really longed for parents that understood me, and I longed for parents that would um, know how to talk to me, how to sit with me, and and then fast forward, I'm a youth leader in church, and I'm working with a lot of these teens, and they were also just really struggling through their teen years. And I realized that I wasn't just alone in my experience of not having good connection with my parents. And so around that time, I started thinking, one day I really want to help parents. I really want to help parents understand their story and understand how to show up better for their kids. And then when I was a child therapist, that became even more evident. I'm working with court mandated parents, right? And I'm working with parents who have to take parenting classes from me. And I'm like 24, 25, and I have no business teaching a parenting class. And yet, what I realized was there were resources and wisdom that I had that these parents didn't have because they just were basically trying to survive. And so I said one day, hey, that would be amazing if I could just create a resource that synthesized all the learnings that I had, and but in a way that people could receive it and digest it. But so much of it was, there's so many good resources out there, so many good parenting books out there. However, I believe that the best work you can do as a parent is to do your own work, is to not just have the knowledge of what to do in parenting and how to show up as a parent, but it's really reparenting yourself and healing those deep places that prevents you from fully showing up for your child. Um, and so that was the hope and the dream. So 20 years ago, I was kind of saying, one day if I write a book, it'll be a parenting book and just to help parents to do their own work. And then it was like 2012 21 or 2. And I was talking to a friend and I said, I really want to push back up against tiger parenting. Um, I mean, I'm not taking Amy Chua on because she seems like a badass and like a little scary. But like I said, if I could write a parenting book, I want Asians to not just be known for tiger parenting, but for a different kind of parenting. So I said, maybe it's like panda parenting. And it's like the softer, just warmer, more empathic way of parenting. And then I looked up pandas are crazy parents. They are not good moms. They will they will let a child die if they're not not doing well. So I was like, maybe that's not a good idea to name it panda parenting. Turns out there is a thing called panda parenting. I don't know. But so that was kind of the little seed that had planted more deeply of this parenting book. And then it was 2024. I was not in a good place. I was actually pretty depressed. I get seasonal affective disorder. I mean, this LA girl coming from sunny California, living in New York, it's hard. And so by the time end of January rolls around, it's gloomy. I get a little depressed. And so my friend was like, let me set you up with a ministry partner who will just encourage you. And so I was on the Zoom call with this woman, Ocille. She's amazing. And she starts saying, she's pretty prophetic and just starts speaking all these truths and different things. And then all of a sudden she looks at me, she goes, Jean, you're writing a book and it's a workbook on families. And I was like, what? No, I'm not. And then she goes, well, God's saying the time is now. So I start crying and I'm like, dang it. What? I have no idea where to start. I have no idea what I'm doing. And it really was in that moment that I felt just such the strong conviction that this is something that is not just this dream I have or a hope one day, but I really need to do it. And so I started praying. I'm like, okay, God, if you really want me to do this, you need to help me. And then my friend Ruth, who had been encouraged by her uncle to start praying that dangerous prayer of, okay, God, help me to do something that's beyond my resources and my means and my abilities. And so I started praying that prayer. I was like, okay, this is way beyond me. And God, can you help me? And um, I started getting connected with people here and there just to help me on that journey. So that's been, gosh, the last 2+ years of me seriously giving this a good shot. And it will be three years almost to the date that I will be able to publish it. So it's pretty incredible.
I love panda parenting. I didn't realize that there was such a thing called panda parenting. But it makes sense because those like baby pandas, they just end up like rolling over into
Rolling
God
around,
knows
they're
where.
so cute.
They're so cute.
They're so cute. Oh my
I
gosh.
love that.
Well, originally, like the thought was, because Amy Chua's book is a battle hymn of a tiger mother. And so I was like, maybe I call it a peaceful song of a panda mom. And
Mm.
that was the thought.
We are gonna go back because you mentioned a little bit about your rebellious teenage years. Tell me about a memory that stands out to you in your rebellious stage. You're kind of looking back and you're like, "Ooh, I shouldn't have done that."
Oh man. So this was last week and I'll kind of get to that question, but I want to give you um a little taste of how far my mom and I have come. Last week I was traveling and she calls me and she's like, "You're traveling again?" And she starts, lecturing me. And I was like, "Mom, do you want me to pick up the phone and answer when you call me? And do you want me to be honest about where I am? Because you behaving this way and lecturing me, I'm a grown ass woman. Like I won't pick up the phone or I'll lie to you about where I am." And then she goes, "Okay, 알았어." She's like, "Oh, 재밌게 놀아." She's like, "Okay, have fun." Anyway, but I bring that up because we've come so far. So the memory that's coming up as you're asking that question is I was in junior high and I was a cheerleader. And I didn't even know what that means because we had no sports team to be cheering for or anything. It was just, pep rallies. We're just, rallying our school spirit. And so I was a cheerleader and I was dating this guy. And my mom was very much against me dating. I guess that's understandable. And so I would lie. I would be like, I'm at cheer practice, and I would not be at cheer practice. I would be with this boy. And this one time she came to the school after school looking for me at cheer practice, and she found me with the boy. And I was just like, oh, it was so humiliating. And never again. And so it just reminds me of like, man, if I could have just been honest and like brought him home, and my mom would have just like been like, yeah, cool, date this boy, whatever. It's little young love and nothing's going to really come of it. I would have probably been more honest and not sneaking around so much.
You were sharing that story, and I was like clutching my pearl, just in like memory of my own experiences. Like, oh gosh, she
Wow.
found you.
Yeah, she
The
found me.
horror.
It was the most horrific thing ever. I was so mortified. So
Goodness
embarrassing.
gracious. And that does lead me to sort of the next question I had prepared, but I'm going to reframe it because it reminds me of a chapter that we are going to discuss later in your book, where you sort of discuss the experience that you had of a very overprotective parent and then like a parent that is just sort of like aloof. I forget the language that you use, you could tell it better. But I often think about like, okay, if I were back in my childhood and I were to be reparented, what would that look like in a moment like that, in a memory like that? I have plenty of moments of my own rebellion where I was constantly in secrecy and hiding from my parents because I couldn't tell them anything. It was always either met with like overreaction because they're afraid, like they're scared that their baby's going to die or they're going to be disobedient or they're going to be, just making you look bad or whatever. How do you think it is that you would want to um reparent yourself in that memory specifically? Like what would you have wanted for that teenage girl?
I I wish in that moment, well, one, I kind of alluded to this, but I wish I had the freedom to tell my mom that I'm dating this boy and that I could bring him to our home and introduce them and tell her all about it. And then I wish that, let's say, I wasn't forthright and was hanging out with him instead of being at the cheer practice. If she saw me and she came, well, she was looking for me, and that she would be like, "Oh, hi," just really excited to see me and to meet this boy and just want to get to know him. And then later on, sit down with me and be like, "Hey, what have I done that you didn't feel like safe to talk to me about this and to be open and honest about this? And how could I have showed up better for you?" Um, I mean, can you even imagine? So, and then, I would be able to say, yeah, I was scared to tell you because I thought you would be mad at me or you wouldn't let me see him. And so I thought I had to sneak around. And if she were to just be able to own up to the ways that her fear had gotten in the way, if her ability to be grounded and not operating from the place of fear gave me the freedom to just try out these things and to have these relationships and not make a big deal of it, I think I wouldn't have put so much weight and power into it either. It's my desire to make my own choices, right? And that's every adolescent, every teenager is in that season trying to figure out where can I push the boundaries and where can I have agency and autonomy. And when you have parents that don't allow that, and even as a 40 something year old grown woman, my mom telling me how to show up and how to be a parent myself, that's where you start feeling like, okay, well, I just can't be honest. I don't want to be honest. I don't want to tell her all the things. And so I think for me, I wish my mom was so grounded in her own sense of security and being and not needing me to be perfectly safe in all of my decisions, that I wasn't going to completely dysregulate her and take her off in a tailspin of her own anxiety and fear. Because that's what I felt like. Anytime I was making a decision that wasn't perfect, it was feeding into her worry of Jean's just going to go off the deep end and she's going to live in this way. And that was a lot of pressure for a 13, 14-year-old to be carrying.
In listening to you talk, what it reminded me of was my own experiences of that hiddenness and secrecy breeding the sense of loneliness.
Mm,
Because what you're talking about is this desire that you have for connection with the person that is your protector and your guardian and someone you're getting advice from. To this day, you're getting advice from her. Obviously, they're older and wiser in moments. And I think all of us have this desire for that connection. It's so natural, for us to need community, to need the wisdom of community, to need the protection of community. And I think in my own experience of growing up, I felt this constant feeling of loneliness because I knew that I couldn't be honest. And I think honesty breeds connection. And even
mm,
to this day, like you're constantly gauging like who you can be honest with because you don't know who is capable of holding your truth, not because they don't want to, their intentions are always in the right place, but because they don't have the ability to, the capacity to, they don't have the healing to. And so I know that in talking about our parents, they were often in a very traumatized state. They were constantly displaced. They were moving from, Korea to America to just navigating through all this newness and just trying to raise children. Like, I can only imagine how traumatizing and
mm.
triggering all of those experiences were. So they couldn't really give that. And I understand that. But I think the damage that it created was it caused this narrative that we are all alone. And I think in my studies, that's what I've been constantly returning back to is the sense of loneliness that Asian women in particular feel. And it leads me to my next question, which is how did you know that you were healing? Because I know that in our private conversations and the conversations we've been having here, um, I get the sense that you also experience that sense of loneliness, that sense of abandonment in some ways. Um, how did you know if you did feel that when you started to heal?
Gosh, I'm really struck by that not being able to be honest breeds loneliness. And I think that is so good. And so when you think about when you can't be honest with yourself and when you can't be honest with those that you want to have that connection with, um, you you're not healing. You're disintegrated. You're disconnected from yourself and from others. And so I think that the first step towards healing is feeling connection with someone that is safe, some, friends, community. For me, it was in youth group. I think that it was my youth leader really starting to be able to be honest and share in vulnerable ways of things I was struggling with or the areas that I was feeling just deep pain and fear and that loneliness. And when I started showing up in that honest way in those spaces, that is when I think I started feeling like, okay, I can start healing. I can start that process of that reintegration and that reconnection to myself. What am I really longing for? And this is what I'm doing with my clients and the people that I work with is how do we start being honest with ourselves? We've had to deny ourselves so much because the people that we so long to connect with were not willing to sit with the honest version of us. And so we had to show up in ways that was very dishonest so that we would think that we were being accepted, even if what's true acceptance, right? And so I think when I found spaces that I could show up in all the messy, ugly, not perfect ways and still be received and loved and shown grace, that's when I started feeling like, okay, I can heal these areas. And that has been, gosh, because our nervous system and the way that we have been formed at such a young age, if we've had to deny ourselves, we will kick into that place of, are they actually receiving you? Are they actually um, allowing you to be you? When's the ground underneath you going to be pulled out? And when are you going to be experience that disconnection again? When will they betray you? Um, and so that vigilance does stay there. But I think to rewire our nervous systems to say, okay, we are okay. And I think that for me, the most secure foundation of that has been God and has been, and this is why I think youth group was the first experience of that, was because someone who loved God was loving me with that secure love. And when I can go to God and say, God, you really do accept me for all of me, and I can be completely honest and show up in this way that is broken and flawed, and you receive me. Oh, okay. Like that's grace upon grace. And then the healing can happen. Um, and it's finding communities where that grace is displayed. And it will be messy at times, but it's so good when you find it because you know that it's beyond actually how you're showing up. It's not about proving anything or showing your worth or proving your worth, but it's the love and grace that is beyond me.
This is Lyra in editing mode. I truly love this conversation. I think that there is a real value in being reparented. And the one thing I kept coming back to was it's not too late. It's never too late if you are a person of faith. There is so much redemption in our opportunity to walk with Christ. And that's all he does is he gives second chances all the time. And so I pray that this inspires you to think also back on your own story and listen in for how Jesus has already redeemed or is planning to redeem your story. Let me pray for you. Holy Spirit, thank you so much that you are a redeemer. Thank you that you love to give out second chances. Thank you that you love our stories and that you are present through them, even if we didn't always enjoy the way that that looked like in the moment. I thank you for reminding us that you can deliver us from our pain, our wounds. You can also change our minds to help us see the truth in the middle of our weakness and our stories. I pray for every person listening to this right now that they would believe that there is a second chance. Whatever harm that they've endured, whatever harm that they have inflicted, I thank you that there is a second chance with you. And I pray that you would give us the strength to submit in obedience to understand what that looks like, what your version of redemption looks like in our stories. We love you so much, and we thank you for being our perfect parent. In Jesus' name, amen. See you in the next episode.